Hey everybody, Mike Naso here with an early morning update on the tropics. Taking a look out there today, we do have a few features that we've been watching the last couple of days, mainly in the eastern and central Atlantic with Invest 92L, which almost became a depression yesterday, then kind of faltered and is kind of making a comeback this morning, although it is much smaller. I'll show you that in just a second than it was. There is a shear zone in here, which I'll also touch on, which could weaken the system or even destroy it before it has a chance to move any further west or strengthen. We also have an upper level low in the Gulf of Mexico, high pressure here, and that is pushing flow in this direction, so there could be some moisture moving into the Gulf of Mexico over the next several days. Also, a feature down here moving into the eastern Pacific, which many models make a strong hurricane and parallel the coast, and another feature here off Mexico that we are watching. First and foremost, 92L. You can see it down there in the bottom right hand portion of your screen. This was yesterday morning, and you can see the system was showing some signs of significant organization. Good outflow in all quadrants and very strong convection near the center of what was developing a circulation. However, 24 hours later now you can see it's obviously a lot smaller and a lot less defined. However, the circulation appears to be more potent, and that's why it could still get an upgrade before hitting the shear zone. Here's the latest model guidance on 92L, and you can see they're almost all unanimous in taking the system generally on a track right towards the northwest or the west-northwest, generally towards the northern islands. However, it appears to be moving even further north than that right now, and if it gets caught up in the shear, it may never progress as far west as some of the models show. You can see the BAM model takes it all the way south of the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, and the Canadian, which I'll show you in just a second, actually does take this system into the Gulf of Mexico. Now here's the Canadian model, and you can see that it takes the system through the islands over Cuba and a track pretty much like this, raking Hispaniola and Cuba as a tropical depression or storm. And in the longer range, it actually takes it near the Florida Keys and makes it about 997 millibars, so a strengthening tropical storm in the southeast Gulf of Mexico. Also notice our system I pointed out off of Panama becomes a powerful hurricane and parallels the coast here of Mexico with more waves moving behind our 92L as it progresses through the Caribbean. Now that's just the Canadian model, so that needs to be taken with a big grain of salt. Now here's the latest visible as the sun comes up there, and you can clearly see the spin right in here. It does have some convection over. It's very tiny compared to yesterday, very not really dry, but the shear is impacting it, and you can even see a little bit better on the central Atlantic visible loop as the sun comes up. You can clearly see that wind shear here starting to impact it, but if the center is developing way down here, then it still might have some time to form. Also note this little swirl coming into view. This is another wave which some of the models were pretty bullish with the last 2 days. Not as much this morning, but again, this hurricane season seems to be one that's going to be very, very active. So the chances of getting development could be pretty high. So we're going to watch this very, very carefully as this system continues to progress right on up towards the west-northwest, and there's really nothing to stop it other than wind shear. Waters are very warm, but note the 50 knots of wind shear in here. You can see it even better on the tendencies. There it is, even more than 50 knots, and that's the killer. If this wasn't here, we would be dealing with a hurricane in a few days heading up towards the Turks, Caicos, Bahamas, and Hispaniola, and that'd be very, very bad. Note how favorable it is here just north of this area. If the system somehow survives and conditions remain favorable, the waters only get warmer, so we're going to have to watch this very carefully. The GFS model was showing this pretty much dying out and the wave moving over the Antilles, but making it up into the Bahamas yesterday, and it actually showed it stalling out and becoming what looks close to be a hurricane based on the resolution with a very favorable flow right around like that. So if that were to occur, then we'd be dealing with a whole different ball game. But right now, that doesn't appear to be the factor. Note the very favorable shear south of Mexico, where our system will be progressing the next few days in what right now appears to be a possible hurricane paralleling Mexico in just a few short days. Now, one of the reasons why we may have all this activity is the Madden-Julian Oscillation, the MJO, is pulsing right in the eastern Atlantic over Africa, and it moves in this general direction. And so when we do get these pulses, that helps convection fire, and so that's usually why we get systems off Africa being a little bit more strong. But for June 15th, it is quite rare. Again, here's the satellite imagery of the western Atlantic, and you can see there's a low pressure clearly trying to get going here. It's over land, but it's moving towards the Pacific, and that could be a hurricane. If it does become a storm, the next name is Blas, but there is another feature in the eastern Pacific to talk about that may become Blas before that, and that's a moderate risk at tropical cyclone formation right there south of Mexico, blowing up pretty good right here. Definitely has got some banding going on the southern edge, but no real signs of a spin yet. But if it does get going, this could spin around for a few days, probably head on out. The one coming off of Central America and Panama, that's the one I think that would have significant hurricane potential. But that too would probably head generally away from the coastline, at least in the short term. So we're going to keep an eye on 92L if it does develop. I'll be back. Frequent updates from IPR365.com and podweather.com.